she's really demonstrated what it means to be queen. And I think she set that bar really high. She gave herself entirely to her work and never wavered in carrying out her royal duties.
Princess Catherine, she does it out of sense of duty, but more importantly, she does it because she absolutely...
In the grand tapestry of royal life, there are moments scripted for the cameras. And then there are moments that no one could have written, moments so real, so unexpected, they leave even the most seasoned palace insiders speechless. This is the story of one such night. A night when centuries of tradition collided with something far more powerful. Genuine admiration between two women who understand the weight of a crown, whether visible or invisible. It was early 2025, and Buckingham Palace was gleaming like a polished jewel. The occasion? A state banquet honoring the official visit of King Abdullah II and Queen Rania of Jordan. In Syria, the air hummed with quiet excitement. The guest list read like a who's who of diplomacy ambassadors, senior ministers, military chiefs, and of course, the full force of Britain's royal family. Gold-edged menus rested beside crystal glasses. Floral centerpieces mixed the lush blooms of English gardens with the vibrant colors of Jordanian landscapes. Footmen moved silently, as if choreographed by history itself. And yet, for all the perfection of the setting, no one suspected that before the night was over, a single sentence would ripple through royal history and social media with the force of an earthquake. Before we get to that moment, you have to understand something. Princess Catherine and Queen Rania weren't strangers politely meeting over canapes. Their story stretches back years, even decades, to a time long before Catherine ever wore a tiara. Catherine spent part of her childhood in Jordan when her father worked there in the 1980s. It was a short chapter in her life, but it planted a seed, an understanding of Middle Eastern warmth, traditions, and values. Fast forward to 2011. Rania attends the wedding of Prince William and Catherine, one queen in the making, witnessing the rise of another. Over the years, their paths crossed again and again at royal weddings, state visits, charity events. Each time, a little more respect was built, a little more familiarity. Both women share a passion for early childhood development, women's empowerment, and humanitarian work, and both know the delicate balance of being a royal mother under constant public scrutiny. By 2023, during the lavish wedding of Jordan's Crown Prince Hussein, cameras caught Catherine and Rania deep in conversation, smiling as if they were old friends. Insiders whispered that the two had bonded over their shared causes and personal experiences. But nothing, not even years of quiet respect, could have predicted what Rania would say at Buckingham Palace that winter night. The banquet began like countless others. King Charles, in white tie and ceremonial sash, offered the opening toast, speaking warmly of Britain's friendship with Jordan. Queen Camilla smiled graciously at his side. William and Catherine sat opposite the Jordanian royals, exchanging polite nods across the gleaming table. Course after course arrived a culinary marriage of cultures. Guests dined on delicacies where Middle Eastern spices met British classics, each plate a quiet symbol of unity. Laughter flowed softly between the more formal conversations. Catherine and Rania were spotted leaning toward each other, sharing a private joke. At one point, Catherine touched her necklace and glanced at Rania, a small, human moment unnoticed by most. And then, the room shifted. It was Rania's turn to speak. She rose from her seat, poised, graceful, and entirely at ease. Her gown shimmered under the chandeliers, every inch the queen. The expected speech would have been simple, a few words of gratitude, acknowledgement of the king's hospitality, a nod to shared history, but Rania's eyes swept the room, and it was clear she had something else in mind. Her voice was warm, but carried a weight that drew the entire hall into silence. She spoke of unity between nations, the importance of compassion and leadership, and the special role that women play in bridging cultures. And then, without warning, she turned toward Catherine. What happened next felt like history slowing down. In a world where crowns are too often seen as symbols of power, Rania began, There are those who wear an invisible crown, one forged not of gold, but of the people's love. Her eyes met Catherine's. "Princess Catherine," she said, "you are that queen, the real queen, the people's crown, because you wear it not on your head, but in the lives you touch." For a heartbeat, the room was utterly still. You could hear the faint rustle of gowns, the soft ticking of the great clock in the corner, and then applause. Warm, unrestrained applause that rolled through the hall like a wave. Catherine sat motionless at first, her lips parting in surprise. Those close enough saw her eyes glisten, though her composure never faltered. She placed a hand lightly on her chest, nodded once toward Rania, and mouthed a quiet, "Thank you." To the casual observer, it might have seemed like a simple compliment, but in royal circles, issue words carry layers of meaning. Rania wasn't talking about legal titles. She was talking about earned respect, something Catherine had built through years of quiet, consistent dedication. She had weathered personal health challenges, intense media scrutiny, and the relentless demands of royal life, all while championing causes that rarely make the front page, but change lives in the shadows. In that moment, Rania was acknowledging what many already believed, but few had said aloud. Catherine had become the living embodiment of modern queenship service before self, empathy before prestige. King Charles inclined his head, a subtle gesture of approval. Queen Camilla glanced at Catherine with a knowing smile. Across the table, William's expression was a mix of pride and something softer gratitude. Perhaps that his wife's quiet strength was being recognized so publicly. Diplomats leaned toward each other, whispering about the significance of the moment. Cameras captured Catherine's serene smile, though insiders would later say she was deeply moved in private. Online, the phrase "people's crown" was already starting to trend, though the banquet was far from over. What most guests didn't know was that Rania's words had been entirely unscripted. There was no draft in the palace's prepared notes. No one, not even her own aides, had expected it. And it wasn't just praise for Catherine. It was a subtle, almost poetic statement about what monarchy should be in the 21st century. As the applause faded, Rania returned to her seat, her eyes twinkling in Catherine's direction. The two women exchanged a look, the kind that needs no words. The banquet continued, but the atmosphere had changed. A spark had been lit, one that would carry into private conversations, diplomatic corridors, and eventually, headlines around the globe. And yet what the public didn't see that night was the deeper story, the private conversations, the shared history, and the plans quietly set in motion because of those few, unforgettable words. When the applause finally faded inside Buckingham Palace, the moment might have seemed over. But those who have lived in the royal spotlight know the most significant events don't end with the clinking of glasses. They echo, sometimes for years. Queen Rania's words, "You're the real queen, the people's crown," had landed like a jewel in the middle of the banquet, a jewel that could not be ignored. As the formal toasts gave way to the next course, Catherine's face remained composed, serene, almost understated. But beneath that calm surface, her heart was racing. Those seated close to her later described the faintest tremble in her hand as she reached for her glass. William, ever attuned to her moods, placed his hand lightly over hers beneath the tablecloth, a quiet gesture of solidarity. Insiders say that during a brief lull, Rania leaned across the table, her expression warm, and whispered something to Catherine that made her smile softly. No cameras caught it, but one aide recalls hearing the words, "You've earned it." When the banquet ended and the formal photographs were taken, guests slowly dispersed into smaller drawing rooms. In one corner, away from the grand chandeliers and watchful eyes, Rania and Catherine spoke privately for nearly 15 minutes. What they discussed remains largely confidential, but sources close to both queens suggest it wasn't just pleasantries. They were talking about legacy, one insider hinted, about what it means to lead with purpose in a world that often values image over substance. Rania reportedly encouraged Catherine to continue using her influence for causes that matter, not just the ceremonial ones, and suggested they explore a joint initiative in the near future. The next morning, palace staff woke to a media storm. Headlines across the globe splashed Rania's words across front pages. People's crown. Queen Rania declares Catherine the true queen. A royal sisterhood moment captivates the world. Buckingham Banquet turns into global love. Letter to the Princess of Wales. In the UK, public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Catherine's approval ratings, already high, spiked even further. Polls taken within days showed a surge of admiration, particularly among younger generations who resonated with the idea of earning a crown through service. Not everyone in the palace, however, was entirely at ease. While King Charles publicly expressed his delight at the banquet's success, some senior courtiers quietly wondered whether Rania's words might inadvertently overshadow Camilla's position as queen consort. But Catherine, true to form, sidestepped any hint of rivalry. In private meetings, she downplayed the title, telling aides it was kind of her, but I am just doing my duty. Meanwhile, online, the phrase, "People's Crown," exploded into a global trend. Within hours, fan pages posted video clips of the speech. By the next day, there were thousands of tributes, edited montages of Catherine's, charity work set to emotional music, side-by-side photos of Catherine and Rania over the years, captioned with quotes from the speech, memes showing a crown made of hearts hovering over Catherine's head. On TikTok, younger royal fans used the hashtag #PeoplesCrown to share personal stories of times Catherine's words or actions had inspired them, from mental health awareness campaigns to her visits to children's hospitals. Jordanian media also embraced the moment, framing it as a symbol of East-West friendship and praising both women for representing a modern, compassionate vision of royalty. What made Rania's declaration so impactful wasn't just the timing, it was the authenticity. Rania has never been known for empty flattery. Her reputation is that of a queen who speaks her mind, often using her platform to challenge stereotypes about women in leadership. For her to publicly single out Catherine in front of global dignitaries and the British royal family was an intentional act. It was also deeply personal. The two women's bond is rooted in more than shared causes. It's rooted in understanding what it means to be constantly measured, scrutinized, and yet expected to remain flawless. In many ways, Rania's words were a public acknowledgement that Catherine had passed the invisible test of modern monarchy, the ability to remain relatable while upholding centuries-old tradition. Her impact went far beyond royal gossip columns. In diplomatic circles, the speech was hailed as a masterclass in soft power. Rania essentially strengthened bilateral relations in a single sentence, one British ambassador remarked. It wasn't just praise, it was a bridge between two royal houses and two cultures. The UK and Jordan have long been allies, but the banquet set the stage for even deeper collaboration. Within weeks, palace officials were quietly discussing a joint project between Catherine's Shaping Us campaign and Rania's Jordan River Foundation, focusing on early childhood development in underserved communities. One proposal currently under review is for a 2026 London summit, co-hosted by Catherine and Rania, bringing together educators, health professionals, and global leaders to address children's mental health and education. For Catherine, the moment was more than a confidence boost, it was a call to action. In the weeks following the banquet, she began exploring ways to incorporate more international partnerships into her work. Insiders say she is considering launching a cross-cultural exchange program for young women in leadership, inspired by her time living in Jordan as a child. Privately, she also spoke about wanting to travel to Amman in the near future for a series of joint engagements with Rania, a move that would cement their bond in the public eye and send a strong message of unity. Prince William, for his part, was delighted by the moment. At a private dinner days later, He reportedly joked to friends, "Rania just said what everyone's been thinking for years, only she did it better than I ever could." But behind the humor was genuine pride. William has long admired Catherine's ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Rania's declaration, he felt, validated not just Catherine's work, but their shared vision for a more modern, people-focused monarchy. Of course, in the world of royalty, no gesture is without its critics. Some traditionalists muttered that calling Catherine the real queen in Camilla's presence was in poor taste. Others argued that monarchy should not be reduced to popularity contests. But those voices were quickly drowned out by the overwhelming public support. Editorials in major newspapers described the moment as a refreshing break from royal formalities and a glimpse into the genuine relationships behind palace walls. For many observers, the scene represented more than just royal camaraderie. It was a feminist milestone. Two influential women from different cultures and backgrounds, publicly acknowledging each other's leadership and compassion, without a hint of rivalry. It was a stark contrast to the historical narrative that often pits royal women against each other for public affection. Rania's speech was seen as a declaration that modern queenship is not about bloodlines alone, it's about action, empathy, and the ability to inspire across borders. In the months that followed, the phrase became part of Catherine's public identity. While she never used it herself, it appeared in speeches introducing her at charity events and in fan-made merchandise, from mugs to tote bags. Charities she supports noticed a spike in donations, with many donors citing the banquet moment as their reason for giving. Even school children wrote letters referencing it, thanking Catherine for being a role model. Internationally, the image of Catherine and Rania standing side by side at the banquet, champagne flutes in hand, became a symbol of diplomacy, done right. If the planned collaborations come to fruition, the People's Crown moment could mark the beginning of a new era of joint royal initiatives. Imagine a televised charity gala co-hosted by Catherine and Rania, bringing together musicians, activists, and global leaders to raise funds for children's education, or a joint documentary highlighting their shared causes, filmed in both the UK and Jordan. For now, those ideas remain in the realm of possibility. But one thing is certain, that single sentence from Rania has already altered the way Catherine is perceived, not just as a future queen, but as a leader whose influence reaches far beyond Britain's borders. When historians look back at the reign of King Charles and the transition to William and Catherine, the night of the 2025 state banquet will stand out. Not for a treaty signed or a political deal struck, but for a rare moment of unguarded humanity between two women at the top of their respective royal worlds. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful diplomacy is not negotiated behind closed doors, it's spoken from the heart, in a room full of witnesses, and carried into the world on the wings of genuine admiration. And for Catherine, the words, "People's Crown," will follow her not as a title, but as a testament to a truth that can't be conferred by birthright alone. The real crown is the one placed in the hearts of the people you serve. In an age when public trust is hard to win and even harder to keep, perhaps this is the model for modern royalty. Two queens, united not by lineage but by purpose. One night, one sentence, and a crown made entirely of love. What do you think? Was this a symbolic moment of unity, or the first step towards something bigger? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned.